I've heard that Final Fantasy XIV's story is among one of the best in this series, and as a Final Fantasy fan, I've always been a little bit skeptical of this. And I think that's partly due to the fact that there's no main named protagonist, so from the outside looking in, there's no main person that's pushing that story forward. You know, you don't have Cloud, you don't have Lightning, Titus, you don't have that main character where you can say, hey, this story is about this person's journey through this world. The story is about your journey, so there's definitely room for there to be a great story in an MMO, but it's just something I've always been skeptical about. Because of course, the MMO genre is not exactly known for its storytelling. MMOs are more known for the stories you create with all of the other players that are in the shared universe. But I really wanted to give this game a chance, and now that Endwalker is out, which is the end of the 10-year arc that this game has had, from what I understand, the game's not over by any means now, but the main story arc that's been going on throughout the last 10 years since the game started, that kind of main story is now closed. So I thought this was as good a time as any to jump back into Final Fantasy XIV. And that's right, I did say jump back into it because I did play this game on the PlayStation the first month it came out. I got it on PS4 and I played it for about a month. But from what I understand, this game has changed a lot since then. And to be honest, that was 10 years ago. I don't even really remember much about it. So I started my journey last night actually. I've played about 5 hours of the game. I'm already at level 15, so I thought I'd give my first impressions of the game so far. And if you're curious and you want to join me at all while I'm playing, I am streaming live on Twitch. You can find my Twitch handle in the description. It's Genji Gear Live. Looks very much like I should be riding a chocobo. I have goat horns. Also, if you made it this far and you're interested in what I'm doing, please give the video a like and consider subscribing. I am planning on playing this game the whole way through and giving my thoughts and impressions on it, at least the base version of the game, A Realm Reborn. After that, I will decide maybe I want to continue and just beat the whole entire 400-hour plus saga. But if the game's not good, I'm not putting myself through that. Okay, so my first impressions of the game. So far, I'm really liking it. The world is really cool, I'm having fun. The music in Square Enix games, especially Final Fantasies, are just second to none. The music does a lot to make you feel immersed in the world, makes the world feel more lived in. And for a 10-year-old game, the graphics, I think, hold up surprisingly well. Though the game may look a little bit dated, it's really nothing that I'm noticing, and it's not keeping me from having a good time. The combat is what it is in an MMO. I don't think Final Fantasy has anything too different than other MMOs, though I'm not really an expert in the genre, but you're basically spamming all of your abilities. They all have cooldown timers, and then you just spam them again. You do have to move around a bit when enemies are attacking. They do have some like bigger attacks that you'll see the area of effect, and you have to move your character out of that effect, which I think was kind of interesting. Other MMOs probably do this, but from a Final Fantasy standpoint, where your character has been placed has never really mattered because it's always just turn-based. You just do your attack, and they do their attack. You can't just like get out of the way. Even Final Fantasy 12 and 13, which have a little bit more of an active time system that is not just turn-based, you still can't just get out of the way of an attack. So I think that's kind of interesting. I actually like it because it gives you a little bit more of engagement while you're playing. It's not just spam the attack until they're dead. You do have to be aware of where your character's placed and be actively moving around. So I actually really like that. But so far, a majority of my playing hasn't been combat. It's been just running around doing fetch quests, really, which doesn't sound amazing, but you know, I'm getting my bearings straight. The game has a lot of systems. There's a lot of things that you can do in it. So these fetch quests are really not so bad, especially because they're giving me so much experience. I think they've rebalanced it so that these fetch quests actually give you a lot more experience than when the game first came out. I'm almost positive of that because they don't need you grinding at the lower levels when everybody else is so far ahead of you at level 60, 70, 80, wherever this game's at now. So I've been breezing through it, leveling up really, really fast and enjoying myself really. It's been a good time. As far as the story though, which is really kind of the big thing that has drawn me to this game, it's kind of why I'm playing it. It hasn't really gone anywhere, to be honest. It's been super slow burn so far, but like I said, this main story I think is over 200 hours long. I think it's around 100 hours maybe on the base game, A Realm Reborn, and then every expansion pack is like 50 more hours of main story content. So I think there's like 4, so that's like 250, 300 hours of story, maybe even more. I'm not totally sure. I'll let you know when I beat it. But so far, I mean, there's not a lot to report. The story's been pretty slow. It's stranger comes to town, you're the stranger, you're in this new city. They have this city base area that's like the main beginning area. It seems like there's some form of government there, but then there's also like some syndicate, some crime organization that is operating on the outskirts of the city. Hey guys, I'm editing this video right now, and since I recorded this video yesterday, I played a little bit more and I found out that depending on what class you pick, it depends on your starting location. So your starting location and the very beginnings of the stories will be different based off whatever class you pick. So I am a gladiator, so I'm in like a desert sand kind of city, whereas you can be in like a forest city, some kind of like nautical like castle place. There may be another one as well, but yeah, just wanted to mention that. But there's, like I said, not a lot there yet. I've met a couple of main characters that were like voiced characters other than just text. This game is super heavily text-based, which makes sense. In an MMO, you are just not going to be able to voice every single line of dialogue. So the story, not a lot to report there yet, but that's to be expected. You know, maybe 20, 30 hours in, I'll give another update, and that's kind of what I'm going to focus on more, I think, as I'm going through. Because like I said, this is supposed to be a good epic story. If this is like a 200-300 hour epic story, that is awesome. That excites me. That's why I want to play this game. But that's remained to be seen. There's been some stuff with crystals and like visions. Your character like falls asleep sometimes and has visions. Of course, none of that's explained yet, so I not a lot to report on. A few things that I wanted to note were at the beginning of the game, you choose your race, you choose like moon signs, your birthday, like some like random stuff that doesn't have a lot of explanation. From what I understand, none of that stuff matters at all, but it did when the game first came out. Classes were gated by different races, which was kind of cool. They had like the little tiny guys, and they have like really big guys and kind of just everywhere in between. And you couldn't be, you know, that little tiny guy and be a tank. And that makes sense. I kind of like that because it gives you choice and consequences for those choices. Every time a game takes away those choices, I just can't imagine that helps the game. Though I don't think the community is that upset about this. I think they're kind of okay with it, and being that the game's 10 years old, at this point, people just want to play however the heck they want to play. So if they want to have a little tiny guy that's a tank or a big giant dude that's a magic caster, I mean, who is Square Enix to tell you you can't do that? So they've just opened all that stuff up, and then there's the other things about like resistances, and they just wiped that all too. Like they still have the questions in there, but they just don't matter. I really do wish they left that stuff in. Like I said, I love just consequence in game. I love, you know, having a unique character that you build that like interacts with the world around it in a way that makes sense. You know, your character, you know, is weak to fire, you know, for some reason. These types of people are weak to fire, so hey, that's what you got to deal with when you're fighting fire enemies. You got to deal with that. But then also you have resistances in other places. As long as that's balanced with all the races, I love that. Keep that in, right? The only time that's not okay is if that stuff's just not balanced. Say your race is weak to electricity, and the whole end boss and end area is just electricity based. Then yeah, that's not fair or fun. And if you are a Final Fantasy XIV player, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. Do you like that they changed that, or do you wish that they still had these more consequences to your beginning choices around the character that you build? So that's it. Those are my first impressions of Final Fantasy XIV. I am excited. I am having fun. So like I mentioned, if you want to stop by and say hi, join me on Twitch at Genji Gear Live. Links in the description. And like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.